I never thought I'd end up with nothing, literally nothing, in a matter of weeks, all because of a stupid purse and some old medals. My name is Delilah, I'm 27, and if you told me a month ago that I'd be sitting here in my empty apartment, wading through the rubble of my life, I'd have laughed. But here we are. Let me tell you how I got here. It started one hot July night when I was snooping around my boyfriend Garrett's grandparents' attic. We were house-sitting while they cruised Europe, and of course, I made myself at home. I love old stuff, vintage dresses, dusty trinkets, anything with a story. I tiptoed through their boxes, expecting porcelain figurines. Instead, I found a little velvet box shoved in a cedar chest. Inside were his grandfather's war medals, shiny coins with ribbons stamped reading, Purple Heart, Brown Star. They had to be valuable. War memorabilia sometimes fetches big money. In that moment, a little voice in my head said, "Delilah, this is how you solve your money problems." I'd been whining for months about needing a new bag. My old tote dug into my shoulders, and nothing in my closet felt flashy enough. I just started a part-time job at a coffee shop, but the pay was nothing. I craved a designer purse, the kind you can't grab at a fast fashion store. Garrett was the old-school provider. Type, solid, dependable, and he liked spoiling me. He gifted me a black leather purse for my birthday last year, a sleek, grown-up thing I hated. I wanted drama. That bright red crocodile-skin purse I'd seen in the mall, deep crimson, gold clasp, impossible to miss, haunted me. It cost almost a month's rent. No way I could swing it. So I made a decision. I zipped up the velvet box, slipped it into my tote, and tiptoed out of the attic before Garrett even asked if I wanted lemonade. I didn't feel bad. They were just medals. Those old people probably wouldn't miss them. Besides, I needed that purse more than Uncle Bob needed a ribbon from 1944, right? The next day, I took a lift to a sketchy pawn shop in North Chicago. The guy behind the counter had slicked back hair and a slimy grin. He asked where I got the medals. I lied, said I found them in a box, didn't mention whose they were. He paid me $300 for the lot. $300, enough for that red purse, plus some for dinner and a few weeks of rent. I tucked the cash into my wallet, chest tense with excitement. Later that afternoon, I marched into the luxury boutique downtown, feeling like I belonged there. I asked to see the red crocodile skin purse. The salesperson handed it to me like precious glass. I slid it over my arm, admired how it caught the light. It felt perfect. I used the $300, though it wasn't enough. I ate granola bars for lunch, racked up a $50 credit card balance, and left the boutique clutching the purse like a trophy. I felt unstoppable. That night, Garrett came home around 7. I was in the living room, flipping through Instagram stories with a glass of rose in one hand and the red purse perched on my lap. He dropped his keys on the table, smiled, and said, "Hey, baby, how was your day?" I flashed him my new purse. His eyes went wide. "What did you get?" he stammered. I gave him my best grin. "Isn't it gorgeous?" It was on sale. I pulled out an old birthday card he'd given me. "I decided I wanted something more vibrant," I said. "I appreciate a gift with personality." He looked at me like I had two heads. "That isn't the purse I gave you." I shrugged, patted his knee. "You gave me a gift, and I returned it for something I like more. What's the big deal?" Inside I thought, what the hell, why would I want that ugly black purse when I could have this red gem? But I didn't say that. I just wanted to keep control of the narrative. His taste was outdated. He looked pained. "That was my grandfather's. My grandfather gave me that purse when he visited last month. I was going to surprise you." I rolled my eyes. "So you colluded with him to pick out that black bag?" Internally I scoffed. Who wants a purse that looks like something a grown-up would carry? But I didn't admit that. Instead, I said, "Everything means something. But not everything should cost my style." Later that night, after he went to bed, I sat in the dark scrolling through pictures of people with similar bags. A second glass of wine in my hand, I thought I deserved this. I'd been cooking and cleaning for him, paying half the bills, slinging lattes at work. He never bought me anything nice, well, except that black purse. So I treated myself. I felt choices buzz through my mind like, I deserve it. Over the next week, I worked my shifts at the shop, posted stories showing off my red bag. Obsessed with my new baby. Women asked where to buy it. I blabbed about. Life's too short for boring purses. Not mentioning those medals. I loved keeping up appearances. No one could guess where it came from. I was practically vibrating with pride until disaster struck. On a sweltering Friday afternoon, I came home to find the place empty. No Garrett, no faint incense smell he usually left on his clothes. I called his name. Silence. My phone flashed. Where are you? I want to show you my bag. No reply. My stomach dropped. He never ignored me, unless I'd actually done something terrible. I sat on the couch, keeping my phone in my lap, churning with panic. Where are you? I texted again. Call me. Still nothing. I paced through things, checked every room. Finally, my phone buzzed, a text from his buddy Todd. He dropped your purse off here. He looked like a ghost. Said he's sick of you selling Grandpa's stuff for a handbag. My chest seized. I threw on a sundress, slung the red purse, and practically ran to Todd's place. When I arrived, I practically barreled through the door, flailing the bag. Here, I said, tossing it on his couch. Keep it. Todd stared, eyebrows raised. Delilah, did you sell those medals? That was his grandfather's legacy. I crossed my arms. They were just old medals, Todd. He didn't need those more than I needed this purse. He looked ready to argue but stayed silent. All right, I'll let you two figure it out. I stormed out. I felt a flicker of guilt, but I slammed it down. Garrett would be fine. I'd show him I didn't need him. I'd give him back the purse and play victim. You caught me, fine. Take it. But don't call me heartless. When I texted him, I'm back with your purse. Meet me at home. My mind raced with my defense speech. He replied instantly. Don't bother. That was something he never did. The old Garrett would have begged me to stay. This new, checked-out version was different. I took the bus home. My stomach knotted. When I opened the door, it was empty, no sign of him. I grabbed a bottle of wine and plopped onto the couch, staring at the purse like a scarlet beacon. Hours passed. I texted and called, nothing. I started to panic. Finally, around midnight, the door creaked open. He stood there, face pale but hard, carrying nothing. I looked at him. He looked at me. Not a word. Then he said, I sold the purse today. My jaw dropped. I felt punched in the gut. You what? I stammered. You sold it? 100% of my victory evaporated. He held up an envelope from some consignment shop. Sold. You got your money? He sounded so calm, so final, and my blood boiled. I snatched the envelope and flipped through it. $300, exactly what I paid. Consider it a return, he said quietly. You returned Grandpa's medals to me, right? You should have known those weren't just junk. His voice cracked. I wanted you to appreciate what he did. But you sold them for a purse. I blinked, tasting insult and shame, but shoved them aside. Maybe he'd want me to have something that makes me happy. Inside, my chest burned with guilt. I turned and stormed from the apartment, slamming the door. I texted my friend Lauren. He left me for real. She texted, I'm on my way. I collapsed on the hallway floor, purse still in hand, panic and anger roaring. How dare he hold that envelope in my face like moral high ground? Over the next days, my phone filled with calls and texts from his family, first his mom, then his sister. You have zero respect. He's broken. I typed quick replies. It was business. Don't be dramatic. Inside, I felt like I was drowning. I had no one. My parents lived hours away in Michigan. I let their calls go to voicemail to avoid their disappointment. I was terrified of losing Garrett. But I had a reputation to maintain, someone who got what she wanted. Meanwhile, calls from that consignment shop kept coming, asking if I wanted a consignment account. I blocked them. I couldn't deal with that purse's cash. That envelope burned a hole in my wallet, but I refused to deposit it. He's poison, I told myself. I don't want money that hurts this bad. So I used my credit card to cover rent, with a $100 late fee. I thought I could hustle to pay it off, but the interest ate me. One afternoon, his sister Amanda left a voicemail. Delilah, I'm not mad, just disgusted. You know how much Grandpa loved those medals, right? My jaw clenched. My inner voice whined. This is bullshit. You never cared about those old men. Instead, I snapped. I know, okay? But he's dead. The medals were just symbols. She hung up. I felt my mom's words stinging through her voice. You don't love him. You'd sell anyone's memory for something shiny. I stomped my foot. You don't know me. I have needs. I work hard. He gave me that ugly black purse. I wanted this one. Inside, I felt a twist of guilt, but I shoved it down. My work at the coffee shop suffered. I started being late, serving cold coffee. My coworker James gave me a look that said, You're better than this. I flipped him a fake smile. But inside I was a mess. I didn't have the luxury to show it. Mid-July, I realized rent was due and I had $60 to my name. The envelope with $300 stayed tucked in a drawer with unpaid bills. But I refused to touch it. I thought, he's the one who left. I don't need his poison money. So I piled onto that credit card even more. Meanwhile, interest rates were brutal, and my cafe wages were tiny. One morning, my boss called me into the office. He was soft-spoken, always a little tired. He said, Delilah, your sales have dropped by 30%. People complain you look distracted. We can't keep going like this. I forced a nod and said, I understand. He sent me back to work. I tried focusing, but I was haunted by that envelope, by his family's messages, by my friend's disappointment. By mid-August, I had exactly $60 left. I still refused to touch that purse money. I needed a plan but had none. My phone rang. It was a text from an unknown number. We need to verify. I swiped left and deleted. I told myself, I'll figure it out. But I didn't. I roamed my apartment like an animal in a too-small cage, looking for hope, finding nothing. My phone buzzed with a Facebook message from Molly, my old coworker back in Chicago. Delilah, Garrett's wedding photos are all over Facebook. He looks so happy. My chest sank into my shoes. I didn't reply. I forced myself to carry on, fold laundry, wash dishes, stare at the walls. I deleted the Facebook app, but the memory stayed burned in my brain. Blue suit, Emily in a white gown, his smile. I imagined him pinning Grandpa's medals to his lapel. My heart wrenched. At the end of August, my landlord knocked on my door, a scruffy guy with a stained t-shirt and a cigarette. Rent's late again. He slid a warning envelope. Pay or get out by end of month. He looked at my nearly empty rooms. Moving out? I shrugged. Maybe. He shook his head and left. His departures always felt like a verdict. I should have had a plan but didn't. I just stared at that envelope, $300 that belonged to him. My phone buzzed with yet another message. Update your account info. I ignored it. I paced until I found the red purse on my bed. I stared at it, my trophy, my curse. I clutched it like a child holding a security blanket. You're worth it, I whispered. I tried selling the purse online. Red crocodile skin purse, barely used, $600 OBO. No bites. I dropped to $500. No interest. Finally, $300. Someone texted within an hour. We met at a Starbucks parking lot. They inspected the leather, asked if it was real. I nodded. I can Venmo you now. I handed it over and walked away, $300 in my pocket. Victory? No. My heart felt hollow. Those medals meant nothing to me before, but now? Now they were tied to every loss I'd ever caused. I emptied my bank account to cover rent, $400. Owed $200 more. I called my parents, they sent a small loan. I said, "I'll sleep on your couch for a few weeks and pay you back." They agreed, but I could hear the disappointment in their voices. That night, I packed a small bag and left my Chicago apartment, every scratched wall, dusty corner, a shrine to my selfishness. I went to Michigan to stay with them until I got on my feet. As I walked out, I felt regret, but I shoved it down. I texted Garrett, "I'm leaving Chicago." No reply. Part of me wanted him to beg me to stay, but he wouldn't. On the drive north, memories haunted me. Nights I feigned tears to avoid arguments, whispered gaslighting lines like, "You're being too dramatic," messing with his head when I thought he wasn't paying enough attention to me. I realized I'd been a narcissist in love, always needing more, always twisting everyone's world to suit me. But admitting that would be admitting I was wrong, something I refused to do. My parents greeted me with forced smiles. At dinner, Dad quietly asked, "How are things with Garrett?" I kept my face neutral. "We're taking a break." He said nothing more. Mom pushed vegetables on my plate, glancing at me with disappointment. That night, I lay in their guest bed, thinking I had no plan, no job. I'd lost everything. I closed my eyes, told myself I'd figure it out. Sleep came hours later, shaky and restless. Over the next 2 weeks, I stayed on their couch. I applied to jobs, bartending, retail, receptionist, anything that might pay. I went to interviews wearing that same lipstick and desperate confidence, hoping to charm someone into hiring me. I got 2 callbacks, either panned out. One manager said, "You're qualified, but we need someone more stable." My heart sank. I wondered if my reputation had followed me. One morning, a Facebook message popped up. "Don't know if you heard, but Garrett's buying a house with Emily." My chest twisted. I didn't respond. I deleted the message and went on with my day, folding laundry, washing dishes. Everywhere I looked, I saw the empty spot where I should have been, the ring he gave me, his engraved photo frame, my old sneakers. All gone, sold, returned, or dumped. By the end of August, I'd used up that little loan, found a tiny studio in Ann Arbor with a younger roommate named Casey. I finally withdrew that envelope, $300, and paid our deposit. I still refused to spend it, but I had to. The rest of August, I labored at a coffee shop, grunts and early mornings, dusty lattes, late nights dreaming about my past life. I spent half my paycheck on rent, the other half on ramen noodles and bargains at thrift stores. My life felt small and bitter. One day at work, a guy in uniform came in, military, short haircut, respectful posture. He ordered a coffee and said, "Remember those war medals you sold? I buy artifacts for vets and families. You shouldn't just sell them." My heart lurched. I masked panic with a smile. "People sell everything. Life's tough." He frowned and left. I leaned on the counter, trying to steady my breath. He was right. Those medals had meaning. That thought stabbed me. Another evening, my roommate Lauren confronted me. "Delilah, why do you keep pushing everyone away?" I glared. "I don't push them, they leave." She shook her head. "You sabotage yourself. You sell memories for cheap thrills." I jerked away. "This is not your life. Don't judge me." She sighed and walked off. That night, I lay in bed thinking, I'd burned all my bridges, Chicago friends ghosted me, Garrett remarried, my parents still sent me money. I felt held together only by spite and fear. In November, my parents drove down to Michigan and insisted I come home for Thanksgiving. I didn't want to, but I went. At dinner, I watched my dad carve turkey as Mom kept glancing at me. Later, he said, "We want to help you move on." Mom nodded. "We know you messed up. But we love you." I bristled. "I don't need help." I tried to stand, but Dad's hand on my shoulder stopped me. "You do." At bedtime, I lay in the dark and cried, for the medals, for the purse, for Garrett's happiness. After Thanksgiving, I returned to Ann Arbor. Late December, I found a small cardboard box outside my door. Inside were Grandpa's medals, arranged on a velvet pad. A note read, "You're a coward. You sold what wasn't yours. These are yours now, don't lose them again." No signature. I recognized the handwriting. It must have come from Grandpa's old friend, someone who retrieved them at auction. My heart pounded. Part of me felt triumphant. Look, I have them back. But mostly I felt sick. They didn't feel like mine. I shoved them into Casey's room, under jackets. I thought, if I ever have self-respect, I'll figure out what to do with these. I spent February drowning in anxiety. I dreaded mirrors and phone calls. I agreed to try therapy, mostly to appease my parents. The therapist, a soft-spoken woman in a cozy office, asked how I felt about the medals. I clenched my jaw. I feel nothing. Inside, I felt a storm, but I wouldn't admit it. I told her, I don't need feelings. I left her office feeling like a failure again. One day at work, I got a Facebook message from Molly. "Garrett's wedding photos are up. He looked so happy." I stared until my phone slipped from my hand. I locked the screen. I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection, hair flat, lips chapped. I texted Garrett, "Congratulations." Then I deleted it. I dropped my phone in my pocket, splashed cold water on my face, and returned to the cafe, determined to be the best barista I could. Deep down, I hated even that instinct. As spring came, my life settled into a routine: work at the cafe, volunteering at the VA on weekends, therapy once a week, visits with my parents. I still felt guilt but refused to bury it. I told, "I'm sorry," when I needed to. I let people see my awkward, flawed self. One day, I polished the medals and arranged them in a display case I bought with tips. I signed up to speak at the VA's Memorial Day ceremony. On Memorial Day, I stood at the podium in a simple navy dress, holding the display case. Weather was perfect, sun bright, breeze gentle. Veterans and families sat before me. My voice trembled as I spoke about sacrifice and redemption. I told them how I sold those medals for a purse and how wrong I was. "I apologize to those who gave their lives, and to those I wronged, especially the grandchildren who carried my burden," I said. A few veterans nodded, some applause followed. Bill, the old soldier who first defended me at the cafe, gave me a thumbs up. After the ceremony, I donated the display to the VA museum. Bill saluted me as I left. That day felt like a turning point. I still had no money, no relationship, a reputation that'd never fully recover. But I had something new: honesty about my mess. Months passed. My routine solidified: early shifts, late shifts, volunteering, therapy notes, dinners with my parents. I still carried guilt but didn't stifle it anymore. I said apologies and meant them. I was trying to rebuild a life not built on selfishness. One afternoon, I ran into Garrett at a grocery store. I was grabbing almond milk, and he was in the meat aisle. He turned, saw me, paused. I felt my chest seize. "Hi," I said softly. He nodded. "Hi." No hug, no handshake. I looked at the floor. I'm sorry again." He hesitated. "I heard your speech. That was something." I nodded. "I meant it." He looked at me, said, "Take care of yourself, Delilah," and walked away. I watched him until he disappeared. That empty feeling was real, but lighter, like a weight had shifted. I pushed my cart to the checkout, paid cash for my milk, and walked out into bright afternoon sun. For the first time in years, I didn't feel empty. I just felt real. I still think about that red purse sometimes. I wonder if the woman who bought it knew what it cost. Maybe I'll see it in a thrift store window someday, pick it up, swirl it around, and laugh at what I lost. But right now, I've got my job, my volunteering, my few loyal friends. I still have Grandpa's medals safely housed at the VA museum. I have my parents' cautious smiles and a heart that still hurts, but this hurt feels honest. I have a chance to build a life not on selfish cravings but on something steadier. I don't care if I can't erase my mistakes. I've lived them. I know who I am. I know that if karma could destroy me, it did. But from these ashes, I'm rising scarred but real. And that's worth more than any designer purse or dusty medals ever were.